We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our guest is Dr. Cosby Stone. He's from over at Vanderbilt. He's an expert on allergies.
Happy to be
and
here.
It is that time of year. It's good to see you. 737-7587. If you have a question about seasonal allergies, what you're taking, what works or what doesn't work, and my question for you is, does honey work? I'm a beekeeper.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, Nick, can I get some of your honey? And it's local honey, obviously, from my hives nearby. And I take it, and I'm a believer that while I don't think honey hurts in any way, certainly, I'm not sure how much it really helps. I can tell you this, it did not get rid of my allergies. And I do. I'll probably have a tablespoon a day, maybe. And I think it has a lot of good qualities beyond helping you with allergies. What do you think, and why do you think honey does or doesn't work?
Yeah, so I've read the available research on this particular topic because it seems like it's something that patients really want to know, because it would be nice if we could take honey and treat our allergies. There have been very few studies that really looked at it in a way that I would say that it's, good. What we want, our highest level of evidence is like a placebo-controlled trial.
Right.
We can't really get that with honey because everybody knows when they're eating honey, right? There's no placebo that makes it really obvious.
That's right.
So
you put it in a tablet, maybe.
Yeah. But the studies that have been done seem to suggest that people have slightly less symptoms, if they're eating honey, during their season. Is it enough that it's going to actually help you, say, get off of your medications? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
The other problem that I have with the concept is that we know that bees are pollinators of plants and trees that have pollen that's too heavy to be carried by the wind.
Bingo.
And what's the thing? What's the thing that people are allergic to is pollen that's carried by the wind.
So you're not being inoculated by the honey because they're not making the honey out of the pollen that makes you have a reaction.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the thing.
I think that's it.
Now honey is sticky though, and the hives, like pollen can flow in and out of a lot of these hives,
so and
so I've actually read a story of somebody who was really ragweed allergic, who ate honey and had an allergic reaction to the ragweed pollen that had accumulated in the honey because of wherever the hive design. So that's one story against sort of all of the other anecdotes where it's like there's really not any pollen in the honey, for the most part.
All right, and I guess the reasoning behind honey, and I'm wondering if there's a way you can do this anyway, if it did work, is that you're eating honey year-round, maybe sweetening your tea or your coffee with it.
Right.
So you're building up, I guess, a tolerance to whatever pollen was in that honey. So if you know what you're allergic to, I don't know how you would go about doing it. If there was a way to expose yourself to it in small amounts year-round, is that something? I guess that's what you do when you go get allergy shots.
That's what we do.
All right, go ahead.
No, you are exactly right. That is the concept behind getting rid of people's seasonal nasal allergies and their perennial nasal allergies. We start with a baby microdose of something that you're allergic to, and we gradually build you up until you are able to tolerate it both in and out of season, when you get exposed to it. It works for about 60 to 70% of people, that we are able to get you to where you are no longer really allergic when you're around that thing. For another 10 to 15%, we can reduce the symptoms while you're on the allergy shots, but you're sort of stuck on them because you kind of need to be on them in order to stay symptom-free. And then there's a few people that, even though they have really strongly positive allergy testing and we put them on allergy shots, it just doesn't seem to help them. And it's hard to say why they're locked into their symptoms, and other people are not. But we do that by two different ways now. There are two different FDA-approved methods for desensitizing people to their allergens. One is allergy shots that you've heard about, and the other are these tablets that you can put under your tongue. Sometimes you'll hear about people doing drops under their tongue. Those are not FDA-approved, but those are things that people do sort of off-label under the advice of a physician.
Like, what do you mean, drops of what?
Drops of allergen.
You're saying what's not FDA-approved is that it makes a difference if it's under your tongue or not? Or
yeah, they haven't really done the studies. The FDA hasn't approved these particular drops that people put under the tongue.
Oh, what are they? Like,
they're allergen drops.
Oh, okay.
And so people are using the concept that if you gradually increase the amount of allergen that you're exposed to, that you are probably less likely to have symptoms. And the principle is correct, but we just don't have an FDA-approved drop that you can use.
I see.
There are FDA-approved sublingual tablets that you put them under your tongue, and they're available for things like grass and ragweed and now dust mite. So the difference between an allergy shot is that we can desensitize you to everything that you're allergic to in one go, versus a sublingual tablet, you can only become less allergic to one thing at a time.
Can you tell me just why? I'm curious. Under the tongue, is that because it's just very easily absorbed there? I've heard that for other medicines too. Just squeezing it in there, it's easy absorption.
Yeah, you can absorb it under your tongue. You know, it sort of bypasses your digestion, and so they think that maybe it's easier on you. But I got to tell you, the main side effects are that people complain that their mouth is really itchy, and then sometimes people complain that their throat is really itchy.
As a result
of the treatment, because you know, we're giving them something that they're allergic to.
I'd rather have a shot.
We're trying, and a lot of people would. A lot of people would.
I don't know if this is outside the realm or you guys have even explored this. So much is being brought up about it recently. You know, they're talking about medical marijuana at the legislature. Already legal in the state of Tennessee is CBD oil. Right. With regard to hemp, if it's made from. I'm just curious if you've heard anything. I mean, these days it sounds like they like to credit CBD oil being able to help with all different types of things, but I'm just curious if you've ever heard of CBD oil being in any way yet looked at for allergies.
I've heard of lots of people claiming lots of things about CBD oil.
I haven't heard it about allergies.
The best evidence that I think that I've heard of, you know, for CBD oil related compounds is for treatment of certain epileptic seizures, certain ones.
And there's a lot of different things. I just hadn't heard if they were looking at anything along that line with allergies or not.
The problem with you know, with hemp and with marijuana being controlled substances is that you really can't do studies on them because they're so tightly regulated by the federal government. Right. You know, if the regulations are loosened, people will study it. I don't know that there's any biological basis to assume that they would help with your allergies.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. And I've done a lot of research. And it is legal in Tennessee for the hemp stuff. Yeah. And I haven't seen it. I was curious on that because it's been so much in the news now. Well, aside from that, is there anything new right now with regard? I mean, what's the latest, the newest form of treatments for allergies, or is it basically the same, just maybe improving on that? Yeah,
I think that what we're able to accomplish now is better than what we've been able to accomplish in previous generations, but it's incremental. Okay. You know, the mainstay of treating seasonal allergies is always going to be, well, at least until they come up with something better, is going to be antihistamines for the basic level seasonal allergy, plus an intranasal steroid for the ones who are really congested in their nose. You know, there are antihistamine eye drops, and there are also stabilizing eye drops that you can use in your eyes that are very good for people who have really itchy red eye symptoms.
Okay, so that'll clear that.
Yeah. So there's one over the counter called ketotifen. It's a great one to try. The first couple of days it might burn because you're sort of stabilizing all those allergy cells in your eyes, but then after that it's really great for the itch. I use it myself. And that's generic over the counter. And then there are prescription eye drops that work as well. You know, beyond that, there you know, for people who are just still suffering, even on all that, we've got intranasal antihistamine sprays. And then for the people who have allergic asthma, that their allergies are just setting off their asthma all the time, there are now these really cool molecules that are coming out, incredibly expensive, so we don't put people on them because, you know, unless your insurance can pay for it, it's really hard to get it, but they really do decrease the amount of asthma that people have in relation to their allergies. So that one's kind of like, you know, we've tried all the allergy control we can try. Your asthma is still getting messed up by your allergies, you know, but now we've got these things that can interrupt the communication and decrease the inflammation.
Awesome. We'll talk more on that, but I want to take a call from, I think we have Mark. Good morning, Mark.
How you doing today?
Hi, Mark. Mark, how are you?
Good. Let me tell you what my problem is.
Okay.
For several weeks now, I have been finding something that, and it might be because I can't understand all these medicines on the counter, over the counter, but if I take something for the drainage into my throat, the you know, excess mucus, I guess, it will thicken it up. And I'll have to cough up a glob, like every hour. Yeah. If I try something else, it loosens it back up, and every time I cough a little bit, I can feel it down there. Yeah. And everybody I talk to says, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's the catch-22 of mucus. Catch-22 of mucus management, isn't it?
I hear you, man. I know what you're talking about. So what do you do? Some of them just seem like it's too strong, and it goes back and forth.
Yep,
back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are two things that I would recommend to you. One is how can we decrease the mucus? And I've got a few thoughts. The first thought is if you can wash the pollen out of your nose, then that will decrease the amount of mucus that you will make in response to that pollen. So the first thing that we usually put people on, that I should have said, is that we tell people to wash their nose with saline. So there are saline nasal rinses that you can get, these kind of sports bottle like things.
Yep.
You know, there's this other one, you know, like there's some, there are canisters that you can kind of squirt them in your nose, and then there's the neti pot, you know, that you can mix the salt water.
That just freaks me out, those crazy neti pots. No, I've used them, and I know some people swear. Have you ever tried a neti pot or any of those salines, Mark?
It makes me shudder. Just
I know. Now the neti pot does, because he's like, wow, it's going from one to the other. But actually, he's right about the saline. You get in the shower maybe, and it's steamy and nice, and it's just saline, which is it's a type of salt in the water, right? And what does that do? The salt, does it dry it out, or does it just soothe it?
So it soothes it, but the other thing is that it washes the stuff that's causing the mucus to form out of your nose.
Okay.
So that's the first one. The second one is, so then, you know, when you're trying to get those gobbets of thicker mucus out, that's the way to go. And also it sort of decreases the amount of symptoms that you're going to have at the outset.
Real quick, I'll let you finish your thought on that, but as far as using the squeeze bottles, I just want to know just tangibly on how you use it.
Oh yeah, the method.
When you get it up there, I mean, should you feel the saline as it runs through come down through your throat?
No, you should not. If you're going to be using these bottles, you want to be in a position where you're, let me see if the camera, okay, you're going to be in a position where you're leaning forward over your sink or in your shower, and you're going to have that bottle, and you're going to just squeeze it in gently, and it will go up, and it might come down the other side of your nose, but you want to be leaning forward in such a way that that does not go down your throat. And that will,
you know, you asked you that years ago.
It'll rinse your nose out without choking you.
Yeah, well, not just choking. Sometimes you use those when you think you have a head cold.
Yeah.
And I realized
they're great for head colds too.
Yeah, but when you do it and you squeeze it and it pushes it from your nose into your throat, you end up getting a sore throat because you're moving the infection from your nose to your throat. You don't want to do that. At least that's what I think. So I've been doing it wrong, because sometimes I'll spray it and I'll feel it in my throat and I go, ugh, it hurts. So you lean over, so you just spray it so it bounces up and then it runs back out your nose.
That's right. Yeah, you want it to go up your nose and then maybe come down the other side of your nose. Some people tilt their head like this, you know, so that it's...
But not down your throat.
Not down your throat. You want to be leaning forward in such a way that it does not go down your throat. If you tasted it,
I have used the neti pot. They're talking to my producers. No, so I've done that, and the neti pot does not go in your throat either.
Right, because the neti pot forces you into a particular position, you know, of ridiculousness.
And it
does
work.
But it works.
It's just more. It doesn't really bother me that much. But I'd rather use a spray bottle. But you believe those work at least for flushing out. So that that would address his mucus. Now you were going to say what else? Now, if any other suggestions for him?
So then the question, the next thing is, can we give you something that decreases the amount of mucus that you make? The things that, you know, like as you said, the antihistamines tend to dry up the mucus, so they're not going to necessarily be as effective, you know, if you're worried about the amount of mucus that you're making. In the steroids in the nose, you know, where you put the sprays in and you kind of angle them out this way, like I was telling you, the over-the-counter ones, those will decrease the amount of mucus that you make by a small amount. Some people who make more mucus than others, you know, it might go along with having smoked in the past. I don't know, you know, your personal history about whether you smoked or not when you were younger, but there is also a particular nasal spray that really decreases the amount of mucus that people make, especially if they're somebody that they used to be a smoker. So sometimes that, you know, for the person whose complaint is, I just make so much mucus, we have another spray that we can prescribe called ipratropium that decreases the amount of mucus that your nose will make.
Okay, now I wonder, when you go that route and start drying that up, I always worry, and I've had some problems with this with some of the meds, it dries it up so much that all of a sudden I'm no longer running, but it's almost kind of crusty, like, or your nose gets so dry it cracks,
it feels
and starts bleeding, or you get an infection because your nose gets so dang dry.
Yeah, that's why I would rather that people use the saline first, because not only is it getting rid of the things that are causing you to make the mucus, but it's also hydrating your nose so that you won't get dry, so that it kind of mitigates some of the side effects of any other medicines you're taking.
Humidifiers?
Humidifiers, the problem with humidifiers is that they can grow mold, and we don't clean them as much as we should. You know, we all want to use one, but then we don't clean it, you know, and maintain it the way that we should. If you're somebody who's militant about maintaining that humidifier, I'm okay with it. But the other problem with humidifiers is that if you're a dust mite allergic person, dust mites love humidity, and the more humidity that there is in your room, the more dust mites you're going to get. And so I tend to warn people, if you're dust mite allergic, you don't necessarily want to be pumping a bunch of humidity into your room, because you're going to increase the amount of dust mites.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I once had a gentleman who came, and he had never been allergic in his life, but then he had a flood in his office. And you know, all of a sudden he was just miserable. Every time he went to work, you know, just everything was just running. And we tested him. The only thing he was allergic to was dust mites. And he went back to his office. He did major humidity controls, you know, like cleaned up the office. Symptoms went away. So the humidity and the dust mites, you know, they're married with one another. Dust mites can't drink, and so they have to have humidity in the air in order to survive. They drink the water through their shells.
Through their shells.
Through
so
their
it's
shells.
Gotta be a vapor.
It's got to be a vapor in the air. Yeah.
You're just a wealth.
Oh yeah, I love my job. This is fun stuff.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, glad to teach.
We have another Mark on line 2. Hi, Mark. Are you there?
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good. What's you got
a sinus infection, eye swell, a lot of sinus headaches sometimes, and I even had the surgery. It still don't do no good. What can I do to take the release on that?
Gosh, all right. And the allergies, do you think some of the allergies lead to your sinus infection this time of year?
Yeah, real bad.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
I even had the surgery and it don't do no good.
Mark, do you take any medicines for allergies?
Claritin and Nasonex.
Claritin and Nasonex? Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, so one thing that I would think about for you, Mark, is that there are better antihistamines, slightly stronger antihistamines that still won't make you drowsy. Claritin, like in the tier, they've actually done one head-to-head study. It's a miracle that we actually have this, but Claritin is the least strong, followed by, Allegra and the generic fexofenadine, followed by the generic cetirizine Zyrtec. So Zyrtec is therefore the one that's of the ones that we consider non-drowsy. 15% of people will be drowsy on Zyrtec, but it also seems to be a little bit stronger. So, I would say one thing you can think about is bumping up the strength of the over-the-counter that you're taking Claritin.
So he's got 2 others that he can give a try to. Zyrtec would be the strongest. And by the way, all of those that you mentioned at one time were prescription.
They were prescription.
They're now over the counter. Is there some now that are still now back as a prescription that you can prescribe that take it to a different level than those even?
That's right, yeah. And so the other thing, is that using good nasal spray technique like we talked about earlier with your Nasonex, where you're getting it in your nose, you're aiming it out that way, that decreases symptoms. Washing your nose with saline to get the pollen out of your nose, whenever you've been out and about. At least once a day. That's going to decrease symptoms. And then beyond that, if you're still having the sinus infections, I hear that you've had the surgeries, if you're still having the sinus infections, come and see an allergy doctor, because that's what we do, is we decrease the amount of sinus infections that people get. That's our goal, with constant nasal symptoms, is to be the one that finally helps you break that cycle of sinus infection after sinus infection after sinus infection.
That is a big deal. I hope that helps. And yeah, definitely look into that. Because that's, to me, the biggest side effect. And knock on wood, I haven't had a problem with sinus infections. I've had them, but people so much. Allergies I can deal with. Sinus infection, a whole new ball game. It hurts. You're getting a fever. You might have blood. You have to take antibiotics. That sucks.
Yeah, wipes you out for 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, sinus infections. Man, I have some friends who just get brutal. Yeah, they're out of work.
Yeah, that's right.
Out of work. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, if you're on hold, stay there. The number is 737-7587. Dr. Stone with more of your questions right after this.
This is a storm.